Hi, welcome to Crafted Sweetly. I'm Diana. Thanks so much for being here. In this video, I'd like to show you how to create these cards using alcohol ink. And it's a pretty easy process, but it does require a few supplies for it. So let's get right into it. For this project, I'm using supplies and everything from The Art of Marbling. And I have a link below for the website should you decide to pursue this type of project. So this is all produced and made by Galen Berry. He really is a master at doing these designs. So the kit that I purchased came with pretty much everything I needed, along with this nice book with instructions on doing paper marbling. Now, in his book, it's all using acrylics, and that's the paint you generally use for marbling. But I figured, okay, I'm going to try and see what happens using alcohol inks, because I've done some other projects with alcohol ink, and I wanted to see how the alcohol ink would work with the paper marbling, the surface area. All right, so in this, the first step is to prep the paper. And the paper also I purchased from The Art of Marbling, the marbling website. It's special kind of paper that doesn't wrinkle once it gets wet and dries up. Some will curl up. Some are coated, like some of your printer copier papers are coated, so it's not going to have the color stick to it. So I purchased paper from him as well. I have done some different paper marbling like this using the acrylic inks, but again, I wanted to see how things work with the alcohol. And in order to even use this, you have to treat the paper. And if you look in his booklet, it's you're using this powder called alum. So this is the aluminum sulfate. And you take this per his instructions. It's 1 rounded teaspoon to 1 cup of water. And I use this little tub just to mix it in. Once you mix this, it's really only good for about a day, so you don't want to mix too much of it. But it's 1 rounded teaspoon, so that looks rounded there. Just gonna put it in here and then add 1 cup of water and mix it to dissolve. So I've added 1 cup of water here, and you can see it on the bottom still that it's not completely dissolved. So I want to make sure this dissolves completely before I apply it. And you can use gloves to work with this if you'd like. It's really the only thing it's going to do is dry out your skin. So I will use a glove. It's winter in Ohio at the moment, which means it's already dry skin weather anyway. So I don't want to add to it. So I'm just going to take a piece of a sponge like this. Stir it a little more to make sure this has dissolved. And you're going to do this with all of your paper. And just lay it out to dry completely. Once it's dry, you have to apply the paint to it within 2 days. Otherwise, this kind of evaporates and you would have to do it over. The other option is to put it in a Ziploc bag or something airtight. That way this doesn't evaporate and you would be able to use it longer. So once I have this, I'm going to generously apply this in one direction on the paper and then in the other direction. I want to make sure that it's completely covered. So once I do it that way, once I do it vertically, then I'm going to go back and do it horizontally. And this ensures that I haven't missed any spots. And you can do this again with as many papers as you wish. It's just a matter of making sure that you can either store them properly or use them within 2 days. As you can see, this kind of wants to curl up, so I'm just going to place it somewhere to dry. Treating the paper with this alum helps with making sure that the paint sticks to the paper instead of rinsing off when we get to the rinsing stage. The other part of the solution that needs to be prepared the day before is called the size. This is the part that goes into the pan and where you do the marbling. If you were to just drop the acrylics or even the alcohol ink on water, it's just going to sink. This carrageenan will thicken that water so that it enables the paint to float on top and gives you time to create the designs kind of like this, because everything is just sitting on the surface of the water. The ratio for this, and you can use other kinds of gums, but this is the gum, the carrageenan that came with the kit. And for this, the ratio is 1 tablespoon, 1 level tablespoon for a half gallon. So I'm going to level this off, and you put it in a blender, and I'm going to add 4 cups, so 1 quart of water to this, and then blend it on the highest speed that your blender can do for 1 minute. Then this is going to be pretty foamy, so I'll show you what that looks like. But then I'm going to dump it into a jug, into a larger jar, and then add 4 more cups of water to make it half a gallon. So for this, I'll put the water in, add another 2 cups, and then blend it off camera and be right back. So as you can see right now, it's just floating on top, but I'm going to add 2 more cups of water and again, just blend it on high. Once the solution is blended, as you can see, it's super foamy and white. Right there, you can see the bubbles. So now I'll take this and then pour it into the other 2 cups of water. So this gives me a half gallon. And I'm just using a big pickle jar to add this to. And then at this point, I'm just going to cover it and refrigerate it overnight. So there's nothing that can be done at this point. This one, you want to rest. You want to allow this to rest so that all the bubbles will kind of disappear overnight. This won't be this milky color anymore. It's going to be transparent. Okay, we'll resume afterwards with the next step. So the next day, this is what it looks like. It's a somewhat of a thicker liquid because of the carrageenan in there, and also you don't see any more of the bubbles. And the next, this I will pour. This is just a cookie pan. You can use really any type of vessel that's shallow, and depending on what your project is, you don't want to have it too huge because then you're going to need more of the solution. So this is just a cookie tray that actually came with the kit. The only thing that I did was spray painted it white just so it doesn't rust. But other than that, it's just the normal cookie tray. So I'm just going to pour this solution in here. And the half gallon is just enough to cover, whoops, almost poured that. Now you could always add some newspaper underneath if you think you're going to be messy. But this makes just enough to fill this pan. So if you're using a bigger container, a bigger pan like this, then obviously you're going to need to make more of this. And this is usually done with acrylic paints, as I mentioned earlier. For this, I wanted to use the alcohol ink. So I just have my stash of alcohol inks. I have both the T-Rex inks and then also the Tim Holtz inks. So whichever ones you want to use. Some of these will react differently on the surface of the water. And there's not much you can do with it. And unlike with the acrylic paints, there's really no moving much of it, because I'll show you once I add this what happens. So there it is, kind of just spread out. It's a very thin, it's right on the surface, so it didn't sink. Okay, now when I add the next color, you'll see that this kind of breaks it up a little bit. And you do have time to work, there's no rush. And I don't want to drop it from too high, but see how nicely it kind of spread out. So some of them will do this, others will actually break the paint and separate it in different directions. So you can see the edges here. I'll have to zoom in, but the paint is actually breaking into little pieces. But I do like the alcohol inks on this because they're so vibrant. Now as you can see, this one didn't spread as well, as the other. It's still the same brand, so I'm not mixing brands. But this did not spread. It's staying more, kind of put. So let's see if I add in the middle of this to kind of help break it up. And it's not doing much as far as you can kind of see it dissolve. It's floating a little bit. And I'm gonna throw in pink in here just to see what happens. Wasn't planning on pink, but I do like how you can see, and this one is a little more pronounced. You can see how the paint is kind of breaking into little pieces or form, not nice and even surface like this one. There's the breaking up part of it now a little more. Well, that indigo one certainly doesn't want to budge. Now you can use a toothpick if you want to try and move this a little bit, but as you can see, there's no moving. And you know what, I'm gonna actually take this a little to the side. I don't like it in there, so I won't have it. I haven't used this color before, so I'll just move it away and it won't be on my paper. As you can see, you can use this if you want to manipulate. I'm just using a toothpick if you want to manipulate the ink in any way. Okay, and then I'm going to take the paper that I prepped yesterday with alum solution, and then the other thing that I have is just newspaper that I'm going to set aside. So once I pick up the paint, I'm just gonna set it on the newspaper for it to dry. So I'm gonna take the paper, now it's all dry from yesterday, and I'm just gonna set it down. And usually I form almost like a taco shape to it. That way when I place it down, there are no air bubbles. If I drop it like this, I might catch an air bubble underneath. So I put it down this way, and then I set it down. And with this way, I'm kind of pushing out the air bubbles. And I'm just gonna catch the corners on this and pull it against the edge of the pan. And there you have the design that was on the surface of the water. Pretty cool. So let's do another one. Now before putting it on that newspaper, I do want to rinse this off. There's this carrageenan that's right on the surface of the paper, so I'm gonna go to the sink and rinse just the surface area off. And to think, each one is going to be unique. There is absolutely no way to recreate this exactly as it is. Before doing another design on it, I'm going to take just a strip of newspaper and run it right along the surface area, and that will pick up any leftover paint. Now some of it will sink to the bottom, so try and get as much of the paint as possible off, and then the rest, that's fine. Now when working with the alcohol ink, when working with acrylics, you can create much more even designs using these tools that are like combs. And these are part of the kit, so you would be using this kind of comb where you're drawing it across the surface area to create those beautiful waves and patterns. But with alcohol ink, you really can't do it. I will do one just so you see what it does, but you don't get the same effect as I did with this, for example, where you can have this beautiful pattern. Just a different effect. So let's try different colors for this one. Okay, so I think I'll leave it where it is right now, and let's see what it does with using one of these combs. So the kit has different ones. There's some that are, more closer together, some farther apart. And usually you'll just drag this. These are made exactly for this size pan. So you would just drag this across, which, as you can see, it doesn't quite do it the same way as with the acrylics. So we'll just leave it with this, and then I'm just going to use another paper and pick it up the same way. And then go off and rinse it. These lines, as they're being dragged, they're not quite as even, they're more broken up. So let me go rinse this off. Okay, and now that I've rinsed it off, this is what it looks like. So I'll do one more, just so you can see what, some other options. Now this will have some of these purple specks on it. That's fine, just want to see what it does. Now this one has pearl in it. So it's the alcohol pearl enchanted color, which I think will add some fun sparkle to it. Because as you can see, it's already kind of breaking up into little pieces versus staying as a whole. So it'll be pretty. You could always drop a little bit in the corner and see if you like what it does before actually putting it on the whole area. I want to add some black. I want to see what it does. But let me try the corner. Oh, I like that. Okay, so I'm gonna add a little bit here, and then I'm gonna go back and add some more of the pearl. I like that. I like that design. So rinsing time. Now this water, or this solution with the carrageenan in it, I would clean this off again the same way, and then you can use this for about 24 hours, but after that the carrageenan kind of breaks down, and because this is alcohol ink, it might even break it down sooner. I'm not quite sure, but it gets to the point where the ink, whether using the alcohol ink or the acrylics, will not stay on the surface anymore because it's not kind of jellyish like. So at that point you just toss this and you would have to start with a new solution. So I'll show you some projects that I made with this, with the actual paper that we just made on the video, and show you what you can do with it. Alright, my paper has dried and I've made a few cards, so I wanted to share them with you and show you what I've created with them. This is the one that I added black to it, and then I do have a list below for the various dies that I use to create these particular cards. But I cut out the die and then mounted it on black cardstock, and then just did a little foam backing to elevate it a little bit, just to give it some dimension. But that's one. This one, all I did was just added some black cardstock to the background, just to give it, almost to frame it, and then die cut this for a little sentiment to it. But you can certainly leave it blank if you'd like. This one I did leave blank. And this one obviously can go one way or the other, but these are pretty cool. You can kind of aim or kind of plan where you're cutting the paper that you've made out, and then just mount it. And look how original and how beautiful that is. And then this is the last one. I did a 3-fold on this, and using the score pal, it's really easy to fold the card like this so that you have an opening in the middle, and then cut the 2 pieces separately and mounted them on black cardstock. So pretty easy to do once you have these, and I really only used I think this one required maybe half, a little less than half of one of those pages, and so you can create a lot of cards from one piece of paper. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to comment below. Would love to see if you do end up making this using the marbling tray and making some marbled paper with the alcohol ink. Join my Facebook group and post it there. Would love to see your project. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next project.